This is the CineSnob Podcast.
Hello and welcome to episode 260 of the CineSnob Podcast. I am Jerrod Kingery.
I'm Cody Villafano.
And Cody, I'm wearing my Spurs hat because today is the official beginning of what is being called Spurs Week here in Austin.
Yeah.
We've got the two games. Are they? I am way out of the loop with the NBA schedule. Are these the final two regular season games? Do you know?
They're the final two home games for the Spurs.
Okay.
I don't know if they are the last of the season.
I know that's pretty damn close to the end of the season. But yeah, there's a game here, two games here in Austin at the brand new Moody Center. We are going to both of them. My wife and I. My wife got me tickets for my birthday. Were you? I forget. Were you saying you were planning to go or looking to go?
Yeah, I'll be going on Saturday of next week.
Okay.
So I'll be going to that game. First time at the Moody Center. First time. Should be interesting to see the Spurs in Austin. It's very weird.
Will this be the first time you're seeing the team play somewhere that's not their designated home arena?
I think so. Yeah.
Officially, because I almost went. I don't know. Gosh, like 8 years ago now. I was in LA. And the Spurs happened to be playing. It was 2015. They were playing the Clippers in the playoffs. I happened to arrive out there. I almost tried to go, but I didn't.
You know what? I saw the Spurs in Orlando once.
Okay.
So I have seen them on the road one time.
So today is the kickoff. They're calling it Spurs Week here. There's I hate calling it this, but an activation at some bar on the East Austin that we were going to go to before the show, but it just didn't have time. It didn't start till 3:30. So maybe after the show, go check it out. Cool. Who knows what they're going to have? They're doing a bunch of stuff. They're doing a watch party, I believe.
There's a game on right now, so.
Yeah, I think it. Yeah, it's happening right now. So it was a watch party for I think they're playing the Kings. And then there's a bunch of events this week, like a pub crawl and stuff. There's some pedicab stuff you can catch. On Friday, there's a concert. One interesting thing that I found out today for my wife, because she bought me the ticket, through the Spurs. They are hosting a like a season ticket pitch at a restaurant here near the arena, which I guess is kind of answers the question, will this happen again? I think the answer is yes, since they're trying to sell us tickets here in Austin again. So
there was something that they were running too, where they were trying to get like a chartered helicopter from Austin to the AT&T Center. Do you remember reading about that?
I don't. I haven't heard that. I know I've had people that I've worked with here have talked about how they had season tickets to the Spurs and would drive down for them, which is bonkers to me. That's a terrible drive.
I can't. It's behind the Business Journal paywall, but there's an article from 2019. Spurs build helipads at AT&T Center to lure high-end fans from Austin.
Oh, I did hear about that. I don't remember a charter thing, but I do remember hearing about the idea that you could fly in. The pitch is whatever. I don't know what it is. It's a season ticket pitch, so that means they're clearly going to do this again. I am curious just how this plays out in the Moody Center, because I don't know. I haven't heard anything. I haven't seen anything. How home game this is going to be? Like, are they going to have are they bringing a court? Are they going to play on the UT court?
I'm sure that they're going to go all out. I mean, my guess is that there is a Spurs court in there. There's probably the Spurs like in arena, announcers and the host of the in arena stuff. I have to imagine that's all going to be there.
I would guess it's going to be a weird thing. I will be wearing my brand new City Edition jersey that I bought with my name on it, like it showed. So if you,
I hope that it just says Jerrod. It doesn't have your last name.
It says from Dwight. Like no,
Nice.
Office joke. I feel like there was something else I was going to add, but I can't remember. It is going to be a weird. I mean, look, I am not following the team closely at all.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to know the players. I'll know Greg Popovich.
Mm-hmm.
You know, also the rumor that there's that rumor that he might be retiring. Have you heard that? I assume.
Yeah.
Also, should have announced that the rumored big Hall of Fame class too, with Pop and Tony Parker and Pau Gasol and Becky Hammond, all
Dirk.
one-time Spurs. Well, yeah, I don't care about Dirk,
Yeah.
but
You're talking about just the Spurs connections, yes.
yeah.
Although Gasol
Anyway.
is like, you know.
I mean, he was past his prime. I'm surprised he's a first ballot Hall of Famer, but that's just me.
Yeah.
I think he's.
I don't
good,
disagree.
and I'm actually really nicely surprised that Tony Parker is also a first ballot Hall of Famer, because I thought he'd be the one that'd be kind of forgotten. Anyway, I guess you win 4 titles.
Yeah, Finals MVP.
Finals MVP. Yeah. So you're gonna see the game, the Timberwolves.
Timberwolves,
So
correct.
it's Blazers and Timberwolves. You got your ticket already?
Yes.
Okay. I have no idea where we're sitting. Moody Center's a
You
nice.
don't.
I don't know. My wife has everything. She just printed out a thing that said, "Here's your ticket," and I haven't looked yet. So, anyway,
Well,
it should be
cool.
fun.
It should be fun. There's no real, like, I mean, I guess technically speaking, the game against the Timberwolves is big because they're fighting to stay into the play-in, so they have
Yeah.
incentive to play well. Portland has already been eliminated as well, so
Yeah. Are you afraid that this is going to be more that this is going to be a split team?
like, you mean like evenly split, or
Well, like getting toward that. Like if it's like 50-50 Austin, San Antonio. I know that's not in the next couple of years, but it's a damn nice arena, and they want that Austin fan base.
I don't think so, because my thing is that I don't, and maybe this is pessimistic of me, I don't think this is going to do well. Like, if you've looked at the seating chart, it's not exactly like selling like hotcakes. There's lots of empty seats left. There's lots of people who have their seats on sale for resale. So I think this is going to be a tough nut to crack. Now, if they win the lottery in a couple of months, and then they can draw, one of the 2 big names, maybe. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like this is kind of a tough sell right now.
Yeah, I mean it's a very late in the season game, in a season that means absolutely nothing, with even like the remotest star player gone.
Yeah.
In Murray. It's a tough sell, but I mean, there's a lot of money up here, man. There's so much money, and there's only so much UT basketball for that arena.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I think it's kind of a no-brainer.
But I also think that arena is going to be booked to high heavens with music constantly for the next several years. So
Sure, tonight it's hosting the CMT Awards, strangely enough.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm looking forward to it. Maybe I'll see you there, Cody.
Yeah.
Maybe
Should be
we'll.
fun.
I've been to the Moody Center once. It's odd now. And I don't know how many more arenas are like. I know SoFi is kind of like this too. SoFi Stadium, where it's like built into the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Like you kind of approach it at the top level and go down. So it's an interesting.
Yeah.
It looks tiny from the outside, but then you get inside, and it's a normal basketball arena. So
Yeah, I'm excited to go. I've had tickets to concerts there that I ended up not going to. So this will be my first time checking it out.
yeah. Well, that's this Thursday and Saturday. So if you apparently
So
there's
next
plenty
show
of tickets.
We'll be talking about it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Next show there's something else happening. Oh, well, next Sunday is Easter, so we'll have to figure out what we're gonna do. Because I have Easter plans, Cody. Camping out at Brackenridge Park.
There's an XFL game on Easter Sunday here.
Really?
Interestingly, yeah.
Wow. There's going to be
So-
no one at that game. How is the attendance at those things, by the way? You've been to a couple, I know.
The first game, yeah, I've been to 2. The first game had 25,000, and then the second game had like 12,500. So, kind of split down the middle, and they are terrible. the team is very, very bad.
How many teams are there now?
There's 8.
Okay.
Yeah,
And how many games do they play?
10.
Oh, well, plenty of time to turn that season around, Cody,
Mm.
and play for the Black Adam Cup. I don't know what do they win.
I don't know, but the championship game is in the Alamo Dome, so that's
Oh,
cool.
well, shit. What was it called? It had a name before, right? Like the Big Damn Game, or back when it was WWE.
Oh, did it?
I think it had like a stupid name. What was the? I'm gonna look that up. XFL Championship Game. Fuck. Of course, this only pulls up 2023. Let's see. Ah, man, now I can't. Now I can't.
The
think
$1
of
million
it.
game.
There we go. Thank you. So, well, yeah, inflation has really taken its toll on the XFL. That would be. That means
Apparently,
nothing.
the original name of the game was Big Game at the end of the season, but it was changed because it was wordy and it was generic.
All right. Anything else before we move on, Cody? We got quite a few movies to cover.
Yeah, let's go ahead and move on.
All right, let's go ahead and start with reviews.
Here are this week's reviews.
So we have Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves.
Okay, Simon, how does this work?
All right. Once the dead man is revived, we can ask him 5 questions, at which point he will die again, never to be re-revived.
Why 5 questions?
I don't know, that's just how it works.
Seems arbitrary.
Can we get on with this, please?
Right, yes. Perlamon Tergatis. Maybe I'm not saying it right. I wasn't scared, merely startled.
Here we go. Were you killed in the Battle of the Everhorse?
Yes.
Great. I mean, not for you. Sorry for your loss. 4 more questions, right?
Yes.
No. That wasn't for you. Did that count as a question?
Yes.
Damn it. Only answer when I talk to you, okay?
Yes. Why did you say okay at the end of that?
I didn't. Fantastic. Where's the shovel?
This is, of course, the it's technically the second adaptation, big screen adaptation of the popular role-playing game. The first one was a cheapo. That's a great read. I sent you a clip of that, a deleted scene from that the other day, Cody. That was really funny.
Yes.
But it was a cheapo adaptation from 2000. But this is a big, giant budget adaptation of the role-playing game, starring Chris Pine. You see, of course, this premiered at South by Southwest, which I was at. Cody, you saw this a little more recently. Tell us about Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves and what you thought of it.
Yeah, so I mean, I have no connection to the game whatsoever.
Likewise, I am. Hold on, let me take that off. I am. I know it exists. I've never played the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so if we're talking about like we'll just say right off the bat, if you're talking about like hidden references or callbacks or anything, I don't know. You're asking the wrong guys I think, for that.
You don't know a mage from a dwarf, do you?
No. So ultimately, what Dungeons and Dragons this version comes down to is essentially, you have this sort of like misfit band of thieves who I guess the easiest, most concise way to describe the plot is that Chris Pine plays someone Chris Pine and Michelle Rodriguez are jailed as part of their thievery, and they eventually make their way out, and in order to like rescue his daughter, they have to band together with some other people that are, one is a like a sorcerer, and then one is like a shape-shifting kind of.
She's like a nymph, some
Yeah.
sort of. I can't remember exactly what it is, but Justice Smith and Sophia Lillis and Michelle Rodriguez. Yeah.
Yeah, and they band together to ultimately, it's kind of sort of like a heist movie-ish kind of plot line with fantasy elements worked in, and the movie was written and directed by John Francis Daley and Jonathan Goldstein, who I am a big fan of their work on Game Night, but I feel like they have had like middling success with some of their other stuff. I mean, Game Night and Vacation are the 2 movies that they've directed, but they've also written the Horrible Bosses movies, or the first one at least.
Spider-Man Homecoming is huge. They did that one.
That's
probably a little more in what you're looking at in Dungeons and Dragons, kind of that really jokey tone.
Yeah, and I think the jokey tone for me doesn't always exactly work. I mean, the clip that you see there is maybe like one of the funnier segments of the movie. I do think that this thing kind of sort of exists for Chris Pine to be himself, kind of like a very charismatic, funny actor who I think doesn't quite get to do this as often as he should, maybe, where he actually gets to be like a lead comedy, leading man in a comedy. But for me, the humor doesn't really work all that often. I don't find the fantasy elements all that great either. For me, I had a really hard time digging into the movie. It never quite took off for me on any level. Like even the stuff that's like very outwardly comedic, like which is like the Hugh Grant stuff and most of what I think Justice Smith doesn't always land for me. I think that the movie, my biggest problem is that this movie is like interminable. It's 2 hours and 14 minutes, and I think it feels every minute of it. I think it's way too long. It takes too long to get going. It takes too long to end. I don't know. I don't have a lot to say surrounding it other than like I just never quite connected with it. It never exceeded beyond just sort of like a background side quest type thing for me. So,
I mean, I disagree. I mean, I did see this at South by Southwest, and I did see it at the premiere, and which we've talked about before can be kind of swaying in an opinion. I mean, there's plenty of the festival blinder stuff. That said, I do think it's very fun, and I do think it's quite funny. So it's like I compared this to something I think in my written review is that there's stuff like Game of Thrones and Lord of the Rings that's really had this kind of fantasy market cornered. Lord of the Rings is more of the high adventure stuff. Game of Thrones is the really kind of dirty, violent aspect of it. And there hasn't really been anything funny, and I think this is a great stab at it. I do agree with you. It is very long. It takes a while to get going. I think the buildup is funny, and I think Chris Pine is really great in this. There's you can see shades of this in his portrayal of Kirk in like at least the first Star Trek movie.
Yeah,
the other two are a little.
He's having way more fun here. For sure.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, I guess to some degree, like, yeah. I mean, I don't know if you feel like it's closer to like, well, maybe not. I was thinking maybe his part in like Wonder Woman, but
yeah, he plays it a little straight there, a little more straight there. I do think he's more played for the fool. Like he's a bard is what his character is, and his basic skill is playing the lute and making plans. And I think it's funny. I think he really gets to lean into like the funniness and the he's got the cockiness but like the insecurity. I think all in all, the biggest weakness of it is that it's just really predictable. Like there's not a big any big surprises, and I think that's fine. I don't think it's great. I think it's fine. I had a lot of fun with it, but there's never a moment that isn't completely telegraphed. There's a little hinting of kind of the idea that this is being made up as you go along, which is kind of the point of Dungeons and Dragons, the role playing game. But I never felt like anything was too big of a surprise. I think, I really enjoyed Chris Pine. I like Michelle Rodriguez. Justice Smith is fine. Hugh Grant is really great, having a really fun time. I think Sophia Lillis is kind of wasted. I don't think she gets a lot to do. Reggae Jean Page shows up and kind of steals the movie for about 20 minutes and then disappears, which I think was kind of a mistake.
The disappearance is weird, but also for me, that character is very one note, and I kind of got a little bit.
I didn't. I get it, and I liked how it played off with Chris Pine. And there's his big exit scene is pretty funny. There's a lot of humor in this, and I think that's the biggest takeaway for me. And that's what made it kind of fun for me. If this thing had been played straight, or at least straighter than it was, I think it would have been a bigger chore. But that said, I think it's fun. I, again, have no concept of the game. The biggest Easter egg I picked up was I watched the Dungeons & Dragons cartoon as a kid in the 80s. I barely remember it. There is some Easter eggs for that if you look in some costuming. There's a lot of, if you don't know anything about the game, it's just going to come off as kind of a generic fantasy thing, which is fine. If you're into that stuff, if you're into Game of Thrones and you're into Lord of the Rings, the various TV and movie adaptations of those things, and you're looking for something that puts some humor into it, I think this is a great pick. I hope that if this gets a sequel, that maybe they tighten it up and make it a little more, a little less meandering, because it does kind of meander. Like, look, it introduces Hugh Grant, and you can tell right away that he's the villain.
Yeah.
There's no surprise, there's no mystery here. It's just getting from point A to point B with some side quests thrown in. And that's fine. I don't think it's great. I think it's fine.
Yeah, and again, I just think it is, like, to your point, it is super predictable. I think that, like, every single character has an arc that you can kind of see coming along the way, and I do think that it has this problem of kind of like running some of these bits into the ground. Like, again, the whole Justice Smith trying to get a hold of his sorcery type thing. Again, it's kind of just one joke repeated throughout the course of the movie, and I don't know. I just, like I said, I just never connected with it.
I'm not as negative on it as you are. I will agree it's predictable. There is some elements in there, like the scene we showed with the graveyard. That's very kind of Sam Raimi-ish, if you're into that. See that influence. It's funny. It's got a good payoff. It probably does go on too long too. But I think overall, I think it's fun, and I think that's the biggest compliment I can pay it, that it's fun. Anyway, what's your grade for Dungeons & Dragons, Cody?
Yeah, you may find this surprising, and I think I am certainly in the minority here based on the scores, and also it's somewhat of a minor hit this week. I gave it a C-. I really did not like it.
Damn, Cody. Damn. I give it a solid B. I have the problems with the predictability, but I think that's fine. I think the biggest thing about it is it's fun. I had fun with it. Whether or not you want to call that the festival thing, I don't give a shit. It was fun while I was watching it. I would assume it would be just as fun if I was watching it at a normal press screening. So, but yeah, it did open #1 at the box office. Who knows if that means there's going to be more. I love when they subtitle these movies now, because they're implying that there's going to be more all the time. Anyway, let's go ahead and move on to our next movie, Tetris.
Знакомьтесь, это Алексей Пажетнов, создатель
Hank, this is
Тетриса.
Alexei Pajitnov, the inventor of Tetris.
Wow, really?
Мистер Роджерс, я хочу, чтобы вы знали, я вам не
Hank,
верю.
Mr. Belikov would like you to know that he doesn't trust you.
И я считаю вас лжецом и вором.
And you, sorry, these are not my words, are a liar and a thief.
I'm also a horrible cook.
И еще он плохо готовит.
It was a joke.
I don't think you understood.
Yeah, I can see that.
We have another film that premiered at South by Southwest here. Did you see this at South by? I can't remember.
I did not. I did not get to see it there.
I didn't either. But this is premiered on Apple TV this week. Cody, tell us about Tetris and what you thought of it.
Sure. So it's a film that stars Taron Egerton as a guy who works for I guess he works for a small like software company, and kind of stumbles upon the video game of Tetris when it's kind of in its infancy. And it's the story essentially, and it's not as the story is not as sexy as I think it's made out to be, in that it's really a movie about trying to secure like licensing for the video game, to get the rights to produce it on consoles and handhelds. So basically, he's serving as a like an in between with the Russians who own the game and Nintendo, who is looking to license it to package the Game Boy with Tetris. And so it really is kind of about the sort of negotiations and the sort of, it's very Cold War, era Russia, and there's like bribery, and there's some shady folks going on. There's some other people who are also making a play for the licensing, who are just sort of like generically evil throughout. I had such a weird experience watching this movie because, as the movie was starting, I didn't dislike it, but something about its energy felt a little bit off, in that, it kind of felt like it wanted to be like like one of those, smart talking, maybe like almost like Moneyball-ish type, dialogue heavy, insights into what is ultimately like not the most exciting thing in the world, but like the dialogue kind of sends it there. But for me, and I don't think that Taron Egerton is a bad actor by any stretch. I think he's really good. I think he's miscast in this part. Either that or the script is doing him no favors, because he was taking me out of the movie a little bit. I don't know if it was specifically his look and his mustache or his line delivery. Something about his character's portrayal was really not clicking for me. I also think that this movie wants to be a little bit more. It's almost like it's wrestling between being like a big epic and being like almost small scale to a fault, where a lot of the movies taking place in like conference rooms and in single locations, but yet the story is like a globe trotting, from Japan to Russia to Seattle. And so I think it's wrestling between its scope. And as I was watching it, it went from like, I don't know if I'm quite vibing with this movie, to, as it goes along, me thinking like, does this movie kind of suck a little bit? Like, there's like the cartoonishly evil British people who own their company, who, again, just kind of like serve to be like menacing. Like, you've got like, it's a father and son, and like the son has like insecurity issues, and the father it's just a very generic British man. And then you have like some weird stuff where maybe the writing doesn't completely follow through. I don't know if you felt this, but there is a character who is a translator in the movie, and at one point we as in the audience and Taron Egerton's character finds out that she is not what she says she is.
Right.
But that's never acknowledged by her, so she never knows that he knows. And then, like, there's a scene that happens after that where she is now fully in that other part, but I don't think they ever on screen acknowledged their context had changed.
I thought they did after a scene where there's like a blackmail thing going on.
Right, but I don't think those two characters interact, right?
I don't know. I don't remember that. I know what you're talking about, and I agree that it's muddy.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's not expressed at all.
Yeah. And so by the end of it, it's leading all up to these negotiations. It's leading towards like how Russia is treating this game in the world of communism. And I think what ends up getting lost in the third act is just like the video game part of it. Like there's very early on a lot of hinting towards how this game is super, addictive or fun or inventive. And then it's not really about the game very much moving forward after that. It's very much bogged down with like literally the details of the licensing and contracts and stuff like that. And ultimately, I think it ends up becoming a little bit boring. Now, I don't think that it is bad necessarily, but there's just decisions that I don't love. I mean, there's a car chase that goes into 8-bit graphics that I was like, I don't like this. There's a very sincere needle drop of the final countdown that happens that is also very weird.
I almost picked that clip.
it could be that song has been ruined by Arrested Development for me, where
I haven't
can't
watched the
take
show, so I don't know.
It's anytime Will Arnett's character is doing a magic show, it's always to the final countdown, and then
Okay.
like one time he was performing at a funeral, and it was a very slowed down, sad version of it. It's very funny. But yeah, so for me, like things just kept on happening where I was not into it, and then I was not into it even more. And by the end of it, it went from something that I was like, okay, this is fine, to I think it did lose me by the end.
Yeah, I'm gonna say I agree with that assessment for the most part. I don't think it ever gets bad, but I do think it sort of outreaches its what it's capable of. Because this is about Tetris, right? Which, if you weren't alive when the game, or I don't know, you were a baby when the Game Boy was released. This is what they called a, quote, killer app back in the day, meaning like the game sold units. Like it wasn't the Game Boy that was successful, it was the game Tetris that was successful, and it was successful because it was a Game Boy. And it's one of those games that everybody played. Like, and the movie acknowledges that they were going to release it with Super Mario Land, which is a good game. I played that a lot as a kid. But Tetris was one like that my mom would play, which was a different thing back in the 80s and 90s. And I do agree that the game sort of gets lost in this thing. I think it doesn't really help that the setup is kind of confusing. So, like, Taron Egerton's character has created this game or has licensed this game, whatever. Like, it's like a chess game called Go. Mm-hmm. And he sees Tetris at the Consumer Electronics Show and wants to license it, but he can only license it for Japan because it's licensed in the UK and America already for video games and consoles. There's just a bunch of shit like that happens. Mm-hmm. Then that's all the setup. And then when you get to the idea that he's going to go talk to the Russian developer of the game, well, then you finally get into like the meat and potatoes of the story, which morphs somehow into like an collapse of communism, collapse of like the Soviet bloc, which I think the movie really outpunches its weight class in that point, because it draws a lot of parallels to the fall of the Soviet Union, pretty on the nose toward the end of the movie. Like you watch the Berlin Wall fall as people are playing Tetris, and fucking Mikhail Gorbachev is a character in the story.
Yeah.
So I think that's where it sort of outplays its ability. I don't mind Taron Egerton. I think he's fine. I mean, and I fucking hate those Kingsman movies. Mm-hmm. And I don't like him in those movies. I think he's great. I've only seen, I think he's great in Rocket Man.
Oh, yeah.
Eddie the Eagle is a fine enough movie. I don't remember liking it that much, but this is, I think, only the third thing I've seen him in. I've heard he's great in Blackbird. I haven't watched that on Apple TV, but, I just think this movie has a way bigger scope of what it is, but it plays it really small. And I don't think it does the movie any favors. Toby Jones plays another evil, I guess, German character in this mix. I don't know what his ethnicity is supposed to be.
Yeah.
It's fine. I think if you're looking for like an exhaustive history of Tetris, like you're not getting it. It's not an adaptation of Tetris either. But it's kind of a Cold War thriller at times, and I don't think it really works as that.
Right. I agree. I think those are the elements in which it kind of loses the, loses its ability to, really get across what it's trying to, which is, I think it's fine when it's about, like the sort of high stakes, of stuff of like trying to get the contract signed and like trying to work through that. But when it starts to, widen its scope, like when by the time Gorbachev shows up, I'm like, oh, come on, what are we doing here?
Yeah, Gorbachev shows up and then like directly influences a character's motivation.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, and it's, I don't know if this will make sense, but it just feels like one of those movies that's like a blacklist movie, like the screenwriters. Every year there's like a list of like unproduced screenplays that are hot, and it's always log lines like this, which is like Like The Founder was an example of like a Blacklist screenplay which is like the untold story of how McDonald's started or whatever. And it feels very much like this, which is like, oh, here, watch the Cold War thriller of how Tetris got made. And I just feel like it doesn't quite meet its promise in that.
Well, yeah, and it like because it gets into like almost like spycraft stuff, like in like deadly threats, which I don't know if that's true or not. I'm not a scholar on the history of Tetris, but it doesn't seem plausible. By the way, I hated The Founder. I was so disappointed in The Founder.
Oh, we won't relitigate that, but there are pieces of The Founder that I love, and then I think it takes it turns Michael Keaton into a cartoonish villain.
I hate every scene with Nick Offerman and what's
John
the other
Carroll
actor's
Lynch.
name? Yes. Oh man, they're played for such dopes, and every scene is the exact same in that movie. But anyway, I think it's streaming free on Tubi right now. I saw an ad on Roku. Anyway, what's your grade for Tetris, Cody?
Like I said, I started off enjoying it, but feeling like it wasn't quite connecting for me, and then by the end of it, when it starts to expand, it lost me. So I am giving it a C+. I think it barely misses, but it does miss for me.
I'm going with a B-. I think it's good enough. It's on Apple TV. You're at home. Watch it. It takes 2 hours. It's interesting enough. I think it's if this was a film you had to go watch in a theater, I'd probably be a little different. But since it's streaming at home, I think it's fine. I do have some problems with the scope of it. I don't think it really lives up to it, but overall I'm okay with it. All right, let's move on to our last movie, Smoking Causes Coughing.
C'est en étant soudés que vous pourrez sauver le monde.
J'avais prévu de passer du temps un peu avec mes gosses en fait.
C'est un ordre, vous partez immédiatement.
Pourquoi vous portez un costume bizarre comme ça?
C'est les justiciers les plus cools du monde.
J'active la phase de rinçage.
Espérez que ce soit vraiment de l'eau qui va...
Je suis en train de détruire une petite planète malade. Qu'on en finisse, on y va. Ta femme vous attend pour le souper. Oh, merde.
Hilarious censorship in that trailer of the turtle's guts being turned black for some reason.
Oh, yeah.
It explodes. Anyway, Cody, this is a French film from a director named Quentin, I don't know how to pronounce it, Dupuis.
I believe.
We really should have gotten our erstwhile co-host Jocelyn in on this, and she's the Francophile here. But anyway, where did you see this? Did you see this at somewhere at a festival? Or
Yeah, so I saw this at Fantastic Fest. This past September, October, I forget.
So
what
yeah, like 6 months ago.
Yeah, and it's one of those festival experiences that I love, which is I saw it completely because I needed something to watch in that time frame, which is I had to find a movie, and I've been aware of Quentin Dupieux for a while. He's kind of known for making weird movies, or at least movies that have weird like plot lines to them. Like I think the one where he kind of came into everyone's awareness was Rubber. A movie about like a tire that comes to life and goes on a killing spree.
I've heard of that one, yes.
And there's a lot of movies like that. And because I hadn't seen any of his movies before, I was hesitant to go to this at Fantastic Fest. But it's 80 minutes, probably a little less than that when you take out like credits and stuff. And I thought, what the hell, let's try it out. And I ended up having a really good time. I saw it at like 11 a.m. on a random day at the Fantastic Fest. And it's hard. It's a little bit hard to describe, and I think maybe to the detriment of the film, in that it doesn't really have a point or much of one. But the basic idea is that you have this group of superheroes called the Tobacco Force, and each of them like I guess like has a carcinogen that they are able to disperse. It's kind of like Power Rangers ish.
Yeah, I mean it's essentially Power Rangers, a spoof of Power Rangers. I mean, from the robot down to the mentor to the powers.
Yeah, and so you get little glimpses of watching this team fight their some nemesi. What's the plural of nemesis? Nemesis.
Nemesis. It's nemesis.
Nemesis. With like a giant like rubber turtle and stuff like that. And it's very, very silly and goofy, but also mixed in with like the bloody thing that you see there. And it ends with them. Well, it doesn't end, but it has them basically go on like a retreat because they're starting to display some selfishness. So their leader, who is a rat puppet in the movie that has some kind of green goo always dripping from his mouth. Who's very funny.
If in Power Rangers parlance, he's their Zordon.
Yes, correct. And so they go on this retreat to try to like reconnect and stop and like work together better as a team. And once they get there, they sort of start swapping stories, like scary stories, which is when you start seeing like these little vignettes that happen throughout the movie. One of which is about a woman who puts on a helmet to like a thinking helmet and ends up kind of going crazy. One is about one is about a guy who kind of gets stuck in a wood chipper, and they're these like small humorous little stories interweaved with kind of like bigger things going on within the team. Again, if you're looking for like connective tissue or themes, I don't really know that it's here. I don't think that the stories like connect in any way. That seems significant, but it's really funny, and I think that's the thing that stands out to me the most is that almost everything in the movie is really funny. The goofy, like it's very, very silly. And I think that the silliness of it really works to a high level of degree. I think like the ridiculousness of the puppets that they're fighting is really funny. The puppet of the leader, the rat, and how the rat is essentially just like a smooth talking French guy. Who like a bunch of women are in love with, is a very funny joke that gets a lot of laughter from it. The vignette about the kid getting stuck in the wood chipper, I thought is super funny.
It's very funny, yes. It's being relayed by a barracuda that's cooking.
Yes, the payoff to that barracuda scene is so funny, where the story stops and they cut to the barracuda who's been burnt on the grill. It's super funny. This is worth watching if you want a very quick movie. Like I said, less than 80 minutes. It's really funny. It's not going to be profound. It's going to be stupid, but I really like I laughed my ass off at Fantastic Fest, and I watched it again today, and it holds up. It's really funny.
I was trying to think of something that this reminded me of because I liked it. I watched it and I laughed a lot. And it brings to mind the closest thing I could think of was something like Too Many Cooks.
Okay,
which,
yeah.
Is the famous Adult Swim thing that's like 15 minutes of basically an 80s sitcom credits scene that just devolves into madness. And I mean, it's not an exact analog, but it is one of those things, like, it doesn't really mean anything at the end of the day. This is just like funny shit thrown together. Yeah. Like the most complete story is probably the little vignette with the woman who puts on the thinking helmet. And
it's also the least funny of the stories.
Sure. But I mean, if you're looking for like a plot that has a beginning, a middle, and an end, that's the only one. Even the story of the guy that gets stuck in the wood chipper is cut short by the barracuda dying.
Yeah.
And not being able to relay the story. There's a scene where I can't remember the little girl. There's like a little girl that tells a story too that's very, very short. I don't remember what that vignette was, but
that was with the fish. Where the fish saw them pouring chemicals into.
Yes, yeah.
And then that was it.
Yeah. So, there's not really anything to it. It's just a funny thing that exists. once I was able to kind of get past the idea that there had to be something, like there had to be a meaning for this, or even like even any way to really like satisfactorily wrap up the plot.
Mm-hmm.
I really did enjoy it. It's very bizarre. It's very weird. It's very, as someone who was a big fan of Power Rangers when it was the original series and it was really sort of ridiculous like this, the faithfulness to that kind of campy aspect of it is really well done. I mean, that puppet, the rat puppet, is hilarious every time it's on screen.
Mm-hmm.
There's a robot that's an Alpha 5 analog that commits suicide at one point, just drives itself into the lake. That they all put their helmets on to sleep, and it's funny. It's weird as shit. It's like the smoking thing has really nothing to do with it except for like one line.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get it makes no sense why they're called Tobacco Force. I mean, none of this stuff makes any sense.
Yeah.
Other than this little slice of life that's kind of remarkably lived in for what it is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's a bizarre little thing. I'm glad I watched it. It has no point. Once you get comfortable with that, I think it's enjoyable. But yeah, I mean, it's bizarre, but funny as shit. I do think that the vignette with the wood chipper is probably the best because it just keeps ramping up the absurdity, but it keeps this really kind of deadpan energy.
Yeah.
And it has no wrap up at all.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, what's your grade for Smoking Causes Coughing, Cody?
Yeah, so I think I was going back and forth, but I think I'll ultimately land on a B- just because I think that it is sort of like missing something that ties it all together. But what it does is it makes me really interested to go back and watch his stuff because I feel like I was very much on the wavelength of the humor of the movie, and I feel like if this is what his sense of humor is, I'm very down with it, and I find it very funny. And so I actually am interested to go back and see like some of the more complete movies. He's a very prolific filmmaker. I think he had another movie that came out last year as well. And I know that he's done some movies that are pretty well regarded on just like on Rotten Tomatoes, and his last like 5 movies are all 85 or higher on Rotten Tomatoes, including this one. So I am interested to see if this is like his style of film and if it's more complete, if it's better. But B- for me, it's really worth watching if you like kind of weird, silly humor.
I just looked up the film you talked about that was released last year. It's 74 minutes. It's called Incredible But True. I'm just reading the Wikipedia summary, and the last paragraph of the plot includes the line that someone's penis catches fire while driving, causing him to suffer a serious car accident. So
there you go.
Yeah, there you go. Look, I'm going to give this a B. It's weird and it's fun. It makes no sense in and of itself. But I don't think that's the point, and I enjoyed it for that. I mean, I am curious to see his other stuff. I'm wondering if without the angle that I immediately recognize in the Power Rangers stuff, if it'll be as welcoming. But this is weird and funny, and I enjoyed it. All right, that's it, Cody. Next week, what do we have?
Well, we've got a lot. I might be doing one more movie than you just because I don't think you're going to want to watch 4. But next week we have Air.
Yes, which I've already seen.
We have both seen now.
Oh, you did?
I saw it last night. We also have the Super Mario Brothers movie, which I'll be seeing tomorrow.
As will I.
We have Paint, Owen Wilson movie. And then there's also a movie that's coming out that I'm going to cover. You can if you want to. It's up to you. It's called How to Blow Up a Pipeline. Is also out.
I will not watch propaganda, Cody. So. No, I have heard of that movie. But yes, we've already seen Air. I'm seeing Super Mario tomorrow. I've got a Paint screener that I'm looking to watch. So yeah, another packed week for us. If you want to reach us, you can email us at podcast@cinesnob.net. Find us on Twitter @cinesnob, Facebook cinesnobnet, YouTube.com/cinesnob. Cody, anything else before we go?
No, I don't think so. I think that about covers it.
All right. Well, on that note, I'm Jerrod Kingery.
I'm Cody Villafana.
Thank you for listening to the CineSnob Podcast. To read reviews, interviews, and more, visit cinesnob.net. See you next week.